The sun was just beginning to rise over the quiet suburban street. My house stood at the end of the cul-de-sac, a sprawling estate I had carefully built over the years. It was surrounded by manicured lawns and tall trees that offered privacy and peace. I had invested decades into the property and maintained every corner with care. That peace was shattered one morning when a letter from the HOA arrived. It claimed I owed a substantial fine for a minor infraction. I had addressed the issue months ago and knew full well that the fine was baseless. Still, the letter was aggressive, full of threats and warnings about legal action. I ignored it at first, expecting the HOA to reconsider. But soon enough, Karen, the most aggressive member of the board, appeared at my gate. She demanded payment and insisted she would call the police if I did not comply. Her tone was condescending, her smirk clear as she waved the letter in my face. I remained calm, stepping aside so she could see the full scope of my property. The sprawling lawns, multiple outbuildings, and private lake reflected the value of the estate. I listened patiently as she rattled off threats and rules, clearly expecting me to panic. Instead, I simply reached for a folder containing the deeds and financial documents proving my ownership and investments. Karen's expression changed almost immediately. Her confidence faltered as she realized the scope of what she was dealing with. I explained calmly that not only was the fine invalid, but that I controlled assets far beyond the HOA's reach. The police, when they arrived at her insistence, were polite but quickly confirmed the legality of my claims. Karen's threats dissolved into awkward apologies and muttered explanations. After the confrontation, I walked through my property. The sun reflected off the windows and the lake, illuminating every corner I had maintained. The lawns were pristine, the gardens vibrant, and the gates strong and secure. It was a tangible reminder that my wealth and preparation had protected what was mine. Neighbors began to notice the encounter and whispered among themselves. Some offered congratulations, others curiosity, but all acknowledged the undeniable victory. Karen and the HOA learned the hard way that authority did not equal ownership. And as I stood on the balcony overlooking the estate, the early morning light spilling across the land, I felt a deep sense of satisfaction and control. Over the following days, the tension from the HOA confrontation slowly faded. I focused on maintaining the estate, walking through the gardens, and checking the gates along the perimeter. Every detail reminded me of the years of work and investment that had created this sanctuary. The lake shimmered in the sunlight, and the fountains sparkled as if celebrating the quiet victory. Karen, true to form, attempted to regain control by sending more letters and emails. Each time I responded calmly, citing the legal documents and ownership papers that clearly outlined my rights. Her frustration grew obvious with every exchange. I maintained my composure, knowing that patience and preparation were far more powerful than anger or confrontation. Neighbors stopped by more frequently, some to admire the estate, others simply curious about the incident. I welcomed them with hospitality, offering coffee on the terrace and allowing them to appreciate the grounds. It was a subtle reminder that respect and reputation mattered more than threats or intimidation. Karen's aggressive tactics had only highlighted her lack of understanding and my preparedness. One afternoon, I received a call from a local reporter. They had heard about the confrontation and wanted to feature the story. I agreed, providing a clear, composed explanation of the situation. The reporter was fascinated by the scale of the property and the calm way I had handled the intimidation. As word spread, the HOA's influence waned among the residents. People began to view Karen's threats with skepticism. My position as a property owner and my quiet confidence had shifted the power entirely. I walked along the dock at the lake that evening, the water reflecting the golden sunset. It was a reminder that preparation, patience, and knowledge of one's rights could protect even the most valuable things. The estate was mine in every sense, and every element from the gardens to the lake stood as a symbol of control and foresight. Karen and the HOA could try to intimidate, but they could never undermine the certainty and security I had established. And as the sun dipped below the horizon, I knew that my property, my sanctuary, and my peace would remain untouchable. As the weeks passed, life on the estate returned to a calm rhythm. Mornings were spent walking through the gardens, checking the fountains, and enjoying the quiet solitude of the lake. Birds sang from the trees, and deer occasionally appeared near the edge of the property. The tranquility was a stark contrast to the tension that had filled those earlier confrontations. Karen made occasional attempts to assert authority through emails and phone calls. Each time, I responded with patience, referencing the clear legal documentation that confirmed my ownership. Her tone grew increasingly frustrated, but I remained composed, knowing that facts and preparation outweighed bluster. With each exchange, it became clear that her influence over me was non-existent. Neighbors continued to visit, curious about the estate and the story behind the confrontation. I welcomed them graciously, offering tours of the grounds and sharing anecdotes about the lake and gardens. Their admiration was quiet but unmistakable. I realized that my calm and prepared response had not only protected the property, but had also earned their respect. One evening, as the sun set over the water, I sat on the terrace with a warm cup of tea. The lake reflected the colors of the sky, and the gentle ripples seemed to echo my sense of satisfaction. Every detail of the estate, from the meticulously trimmed hedges to the sparkling water, was a testament to years of care and attention. I thought about the months of conflict with the HOA and how each challenge had strengthened my resolve. The property was no longer just a home. It was a symbol of perseverance, patience, and quiet authority. I felt a deep sense of pride knowing that every corner of the estate was secure and untouchable. And as the stars began to emerge in the night sky, I knew that my sanctuary, my peace, and my control over the land would remain unwavering for years to come. As autumn approached, the estate transformed into a landscape of warm hues. The trees lining the property glowed in shades of gold and red, and the lake mirrored the changing colors perfectly. I spent my days walking along the shoreline, feeling the crisp air and enjoying the quiet sounds of nature. It was a stark contrast to the tension that had defined the previous months. Karen made one last attempt to assert her authority by sending a formal notice. I reviewed it calmly, then responded with the necessary documentation proving my legal rights. There was no anger or haste in my actions, only clarity and confidence. Her attempts to intimidate me now seemed futile and almost comical. Neighbors began to greet me more openly, some asking questions about the property and the lake. I welcomed them with quiet hospitality, offering tea and sharing the beauty of the grounds. It became clear that the HOA's influence had diminished in the face of my preparation and calm resolve. The estate had become not just a home but a symbol of how knowledge and patience could overcome threats. One evening, as the sun dipped behind the trees, I lit a small fire on the terrace. The glow reflected on the lake and illuminated the cabins and gardens I had so carefully maintained. Friends joined me, carrying blankets and baskets, sharing laughter and stories as the night settled in. It was a perfect reminder that the land, the house, and the lake were truly mine to enjoy. Standing at the edge of the dock, I looked out over the calm water. The moon cast a silver path across the surface, and the cool breeze carried the scent of pine and earth. I thought of the confrontation with Karen and the HOA and how far I had come. Every moment of patience, every document, and every careful action had led to this unshakable peace. And as the stars twinkled above, I knew that my estate, my sanctuary, and my freedom would remain protected and untouchable for years to come. The following morning, the estate was bathed in a soft golden light. Mist hovered over the lake, and the trees sparkled with dew. I walked along the shoreline, feeling the cool grass beneath my feet and listening to the gentle lapping of the water. Every corner of the property seemed to breathe with the quiet energy of life and freedom. I spent the day inspecting the gardens and checking the fences along the perimeter. Each flower bed, each hedge, each stone path was a reminder of the care and effort I had invested. Neighbors waved from a distance, some stopping briefly to admire the lake or exchange greetings. Their curiosity had turned into respect, and I welcomed it with quiet pride. In the afternoon, I gathered some friends to enjoy the estate. We unpacked baskets of food and blankets, settling near the dock for a simple picnic. The lake reflected the sky and trees perfectly, and the gentle breeze carried the scent of pine and fresh water. Laughter and conversation mingled with the natural sounds, creating a peaceful harmony. As the sun began to set, I lit a small fire by the dock. The flames danced across the water, casting a warm glow on the surrounding trees and the cabin behind me. I stood quietly at the edge of the dock, watching the reflections and thinking of the journey that had brought me here. The confrontations with Karen and the HOA felt distant and insignificant in the calm of this evening. The estate was secure, the land was mine, and the lake shimmered under the fading light. Every challenge I had faced had strengthened my resolve and preserved my sanctuary. And as the stars emerged in the night sky, I knew that my property, my peace, and my freedom would remain untouchable for many years to come. As the nights grew cooler, the cabin became even more inviting. I spent long evenings by the fire, sipping tea and listening to the quiet rustle of leaves. The lake mirrored the moonlight, creating a sense of endless calm and serenity. It was a far cry from the tension and confrontation that had once threatened this sanctuary. One morning, I decided to explore the far side of the property. The trees were dense and the terrain uneven, but the beauty of the untouched land made the effort worthwhile. I discovered a small clearing where sunlight poured through the branches. It was a perfect hidden spot, a private corner of the estate that felt even more mine. Neighbors occasionally passed along the gravel road, some stopping to exchange greetings. Their curiosity had shifted to admiration, and I welcomed the chance to share the beauty of the property. Even Karen's distant presence seemed powerless now. The estate had become a symbol of patience, preparation, and quiet strength. That evening, I returned to the dock to watch the sunset. The lake reflected the fiery colors of the sky, and the gentle waves lapped against the shore. I thought about the journey I had taken from confrontation to complete peace. Every document, every act of preparation, and every calm response had secured my sanctuary. Friends arrived with blankets and food, and we gathered around a small fire on the dock. Laughter and conversation filled the evening, blending with the sounds of the lake and the wind in the trees. I realized that the estate was no longer just a property. It was a haven, a testament to resilience, and a place where freedom and peace were absolute. Standing at the edge of the dock under the emerging stars, I felt a deep sense of fulfillment. The cabin, the lake, and the land were mine in every sense. No HOA threat, no confrontation, and no fine could ever diminish the security I had established. And as the night deepened, I knew that this sanctuary, my sanctuary, would remain untouchable and serene for years to come. The following morning, the estate was bathed in soft sunlight. Mist rose gently from the lake, and the air was crisp and fresh. I walked along the shoreline, feeling the cool grass under my feet and listening to the soft lapping of the water. Every detail of the property reminded me of the care and effort I had put into securing this sanctuary. I spent the day tending to the gardens and inspecting the fences and gates. Each hedge trimmed and each flower bed planted was a testament to the time and attention I had devoted to the land. Neighbors waved as they passed, some stopping briefly to admire the lake or exchange friendly greetings. Their curiosity had transformed into respect and appreciation for the sanctuary I had preserved. In the afternoon, friends arrived carrying blankets and baskets of food. We settled near the dock for a simple gathering, enjoying the calm of the lake and the warm autumn air. The water reflected the sky perfectly, and the gentle breeze carried the sense of pine and earth. Laughter and quiet conversation mingled with the sounds of nature, creating a peaceful harmony. As the sun began to set, I lit a small fire on the dock. The flames danced across the water, casting a warm glow on the trees and cabin. I stood quietly, watching the lake and reflecting on the months of challenges and the ultimate victory. Karen and the HOA's threats now felt distant and insignificant against the security and freedom I had established. The estate was more than just property. It was a symbol of resilience, patience, and the power of knowledge and preparation. And as the stars began to twinkle above, I knew that my cabin, my lake, and my land would remain a sanctuary, untouched, secure, and mine for years to come. As the days passed, the estate settled into a rhythm of calm and beauty. Mornings were spent walking along the lake and enjoying the soft sunlight on the gardens. The air was filled with birdsong and the gentle rustle of leaves. Every corner of the property reflected the care and attention I had invested over the years. Karen made no further attempts to interfere. Her previous threats and letters had proven meaningless against the strength of preparation and documentation. Neighbors occasionally stopped to chat, curious about the lake or the cabin. I welcomed them with quiet hospitality, offering tea or simply sharing a smile and a story. One afternoon, I decided to explore a small wooded area on the far side of the estate. The terrain was uneven and wildflowers dotted the forest floor. Sunlight filtered through the branches, creating dappled patterns on the ground. It was a hidden corner of the land that felt even more private and protected. In the evenings, I returned to the dock to watch the sunset. The water reflected the fiery sky, and the gentle waves lapped against the shore. Friends and family would gather around a small fire, sharing laughter and stories. The lake and cabin became a place of joy and peace rather than tension and conflict. Standing at the edge of the dock under a starry sky, I felt a profound sense of fulfillment. The property, the lake, and the cabin were secure and untouchable. Every challenge I had faced had reinforced the importance of patience, knowledge, and careful preparation. And as the night air carried the scent of pine and water, I knew that this sanctuary, my sanctuary, would remain safe, serene, and mine for years to come. As the weeks turned into months, the estate seemed to breathe with life and tranquility. The lake shimmered under the morning sun, and the gardens flourished with every passing day. I spent hours tending to the flowers and trimming the hedges, enjoying the simple satisfaction of maintaining what was mine. Birds nested in the trees, and the occasional deer wandered near the shoreline, adding to the serene beauty. Karen's attempts to interfere had completely ceased. Her letters and threats were long forgotten, and the neighbors treated the estate with quiet admiration. Some stopped to chat briefly, while others simply waved as they passed by. The sense of respect and acknowledgement replaced any tension from the past. I began inviting close friends more frequently to enjoy the property. We would walk along the dock or through the wooded paths, sharing meals and stories. Evenings were spent around a fire, reflecting on life and laughing as the stars appeared overhead. The lake mirrored the sky, and the soft rustling of the trees created a soundtrack of peace. One crisp morning, I took a long walk along the far edges of the property. Sunlight filtered through the trees and highlighted the wildflowers and mossy stones. It was a reminder of the untouched beauty and freedom that had always been mine to protect. Every step reinforced the knowledge that patience and preparation had preserved this sanctuary. As night fell, I returned to the dock and sat quietly listening to the gentle waves. The cabin behind me glowed softly with lantern light. I reflected on the months of challenges and realized that every confrontation, every careful action, and every moment of calm had led to this perfect serenity. And as the stars twinkled above and the lake rippled gently in the breeze, I knew that my sanctuary, my property, and my freedom would remain untouchable for all the days to come. Over the following weeks, life at the estate settled into a perfect rhythm. The lake remained calm and mirror-like, reflecting the sky and the surrounding trees. Gardens flourished, paths were maintained, and the cabin stood proudly as a symbol of years of care and perseverance. Neighbors greeted me with warmth and respect, their curiosity replaced with admiration. Karen and the HOA faded into distant memory, powerless against the reality of my ownership and preparation. Evenings were spent by the dock with friends and family, sharing meals, laughter, and stories as the firelight danced across the water. Standing alone on the dock one clear night, I looked up at the stars mirrored on the lake. The gentle breeze carried the sense of pine and earth. Every challenge, every confrontation, every careful step I had taken now felt like a quiet victory. The estate, the cabin, and the lake were mine completely. And with a deep sense of peace and fulfillment, I knew that my sanctuary would remain protected, serene, and untouchable for all the years to come.